Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you plan or how diligently you work, you keep hitting a wall when it comes to making a truly meaningful impact in your organization? Maybe you've drafted detailed to-do lists, held brainstorming meetings, and crushed quarterly targets. Yet something always feels strained, like you're exhausting your energy on tactics without ever seeing the bigger picture unfold. If that resonates, you're not alone. In an era of relentless volatility, complexity, and rapid change, the ability to think strategically is no longer a luxury. It's a survival skill. The 6 Disciplines of Strategic Thinking offers a comprehensive framework to transform the way leaders and teams navigate uncertainty, seize unforeseen opportunities, and chart a course toward long-term success. Over the next 10 segments of this video, we're going to journey through each of these disciplines: outcome thinking, systems thinking, assumption surfacing, caterpillar to butterfly transformation, contextualizing strategy, and disciplined execution, while weaving in practical advice, real-world examples, and concrete techniques you can apply immediately. By the time we finish, you'll not only understand why these 6 disciplines matter, you'll have a clear playbook for embedding strategic thinking into your daily habits and your organization's DNA. To begin, imagine standing at a crossroads in your professional life. Perhaps you're a mid-level manager tasked with overseeing a product launch, or an executive steering a large-scale reorganization, or even an entrepreneur trying to carve out a niche in an already saturated market. You wake up each morning with dozens of emails to answer, meetings to run, and fires to put out. On top of that, a new competitor has just announced a disruptive technology that could render your entire business model obsolete. In such a moment, it's tempting to hunker down, to focus solely on short-term firefighting. But what if instead you paused for a moment and asked yourself, what would success look like 5 years from now? How would I measure whether my strategy is still on track? That first pause, that conscious act of stepping back and defining an outcome before jumping into tactics, is the essence of the first discipline: outcome thinking. Outcome thinking invites you to climb out of the weeds and specify, in vivid detail, the future you intend to create. Instead of framing your mission as, "We need to increase revenue by 10% this quarter," you reimage it as, "In 3 years, we will be recognized as the market leader in sustainable energy solutions, serving 10 million households across Europe, with profitability margins above 20%. This shift does 3 critical things. First, it clarifies exactly what success means, so every subsequent decision can be measured against that North Star. Second, it sparks creativity. Once your vision is bold, you start to imagine novel pathways you might never have considered. Third, it galvanizes alignment. When your team hears a compelling picture of the future, they can rally around a shared aspiration rather than chasing fragmented, short-term targets. To practice outcome thinking, begin by gathering your leadership team and asking 3 questions. What do we want to achieve? Why does it matter? How will we know when we've succeeded? Encourage everyone to dream expansively, aiming for impact rather than merely incremental gains. Of course, clarity of outcome is only the starting point. Once you know where you want to go, the second discipline, systems thinking, teaches you how to navigate the complex web of interdependencies that stand between you and that future state. Systems thinking means seeing your organization not as a collection of silos, but as a dynamic ecosystem in which processes, people, technologies, and culture all interlock. Imagine a newly launched product that's underperforming. If you simply blame marketing or sales, you miss how decisions in R&D, manufacturing lead times, pricing structures, and even customer support all feed into the final outcome. Systems thinking compels you to map these relationships. How does a change in procurement affect production costs? How does employee morale influence customer satisfaction? By constructing a mental model, or even better, a visual map, of these feedback loops, you begin to anticipate unintended consequences long before they materialize. To practice this discipline, start by choosing a current strategic challenge and drawing a simple diagram that links key variables, resources, processes, stakeholders, and external forces. As you trace each connection, ask, if I change A, what happens to B, C, and D? This exercise forces you to broaden your view and avoid the classic trap of linear cause and effect thinking. As your team becomes fluent in mapping out systems, a third discipline comes into play: assumption surfacing and testing. No matter how inspired your outcome or how intricate your system model, buried within every plan are unspoken assumptions, biases about market behavior, beliefs about organizational strengths, or habits of thought that go unchallenged. Perhaps you assume the price elasticity of your service will stay constant. Perhaps you believe your top talent will remain loyal even if you push them to the brink. If those assumptions are wrong, your strategy can collapse. Assumption surfacing means deliberately calling out each premise behind your plan and putting it under a reality check. Start by listing every belief that must hold true for your strategy to succeed. Then subject each to rigorous testing. Gather data, solicit candid feedback, or run small-scale experiments. For instance, if you assume that your new digital platform will attract a younger demographic, pilot it with a small group of users under 30 and measure engagement levels. If the data contradicts your assumption, refine your strategy. If it confirms, proceed with greater confidence. By systematically interrogating your assumptions, you shrink the unknowns and bolster the resilience of your strategic roadmap. With your assumptions clarified, the fourth discipline, caterpillar to butterfly transformation, invites you and your organization to recalibrate how you innovate and evolve. In nature, caterpillars undergo a radical metamorphosis, emerging as butterflies with wings entirely unlike their original form. Similarly, organizations must cultivate the capacity for transformative thinking rather than incremental tinkering. This discipline reminds us that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to reframe it entirely. Instead of asking, how can we improve our existing product? Ask, what new value could we create if we reimagine the problem from scratch? Achieving this requires fostering a culture of curiosity, where cross-functional teams are empowered to experiment with business models, customer journeys, and technology stacks without fear of short-term setbacks. Consider the story of a traditional bookstore that faced declining in-store sales. Rather than simply adding a few bestsellers or offering discounts, the leadership team chose to transform itself into a community hub, hosting author events, launching a membership-based subscription box, and partnering with local schools for reading programs. by shifting from a transactional to an experiential mindset. The organization reinvented its identity and attracted a new loyal customer base. To embrace caterpillar to butterfly thinking, create dedicated time and space for breakthrough ideation. Set up regular innovation sprints. Bring in diverse voices from outside your industry and give teams the safety to propose bold, even uncomfortable ideas. As innovation takes flight, you'll quickly realize that context matters. Enter the fifth discipline: contextualizing strategic thinking. Even the most brilliant ideas can flounder if they clash with day-to-day realities, competing priorities, resource constraints, or cultural inertia. Contextualizing means understanding how the strategic initiatives you develop fit into the broader organizational tapestry. It requires asking, what is happening in the external environment? New regulations, competitor moves, technological shifts. How are internal stakeholders balancing their operational responsibilities alongside strategic projects? Successful leaders build what the authors call strategic muscles, the ability to toggle seamlessly between long-term vision and immediate execution. For example, if your finance team is already stretched thin handling month-end closes, requiring them to run complex scenario planning workshops overnight will likely backfire. Instead, consider pairing finance with an external consultant to co-create models over a more realistic timeline. Contextualizing also involves recognizing organizational culture. In a risk-averse environment, change champions need to craft their proposals with compelling evidence and small wins to build momentum. By embedding sensitivity to context into every stage of strategy development, you ensure that your initiatives gain traction rather than grind to a halt. Finally, no strategic plan can truly succeed without the sixth discipline: action planning and disciplined execution. Many organizations excel at the first 5 disciplines: crafting inspiring visions, mapping systems, surfacing assumptions, innovating boldly, and aligning with context, only to stumble when it's time to translate strategy into daily activities. Execution demands rigorous alignment of resources, clear delegation of responsibilities, measurable milestones, and ongoing performance reviews. It's insufficient to issue a strategic directive and hope for the best. Instead, you need a living roadmap, where every department knows exactly how its objectives ladder up to the overarching outcome. For instance, if your long-term goal is to capture 30% market share within 5 years, your marketing team might have a 6-month objective to boost brand awareness by 20%, while R&D aims to launch 2 new product variants within 9 months. Each sub-goal must come with defined key performance indicators, deadlines, and accountabilities. Regularly scheduled scorecard meetings ensure that leaders course correct when KPIs lag or unexpected obstacles emerge. Through disciplined execution, strategy ceases to be a lofty aspiration and becomes a daily reality. Although these 6 disciplines form the backbone of strategic thinking, embedding them into your organization's culture requires more than training sessions or strategy offsites. It demands a conscious shift in mindset and operating norms at every level. First, recruiting and developing talent whose values align with long-term thinking is essential. Look for candidates and internal champions who demonstrate curiosity, humility, and resilience. People who naturally stretch beyond the status quo and question assumptions. Second, create spaces, both physical and virtual. where strategic conversations can flourish. Open plan collaboration zones, dedicated strategy jam chat channels, or monthly cross-functional retreats are examples of forums where divergent teams can co-create and refine strategic initiatives. Third, incentivize strategic behaviors. Reward not only the achievement of short-term metrics, but also the pursuit of bold, high-impact experiments, even when they fail. By celebrating both successes and learnings from setbacks, you reinforce the idea that strategic thinking is a continuous journey rather than a one-time project. Even after adopting these disciplines, strategic pitfalls can arise. One common trap is analysis paralysis, where teams spend so much time mapping systems and testing assumptions that they never actually launch an experiment. To counter this, adopt a bias for action principle. Set hard deadlines for decision points and use rapid prototyping to gather early feedback rather than endlessly debating possibilities. Another pitfall is strategic drift, where, over time, the organization's focus slowly shifts away from the original outcome as day-to-day pressures mount. To guard against drift, keep the outcome visible, whether through an online dashboard in the company intranet, a rotating strategy slide in monthly all-hands meetings, or a prominent mural in the office that reminds everyone of the long-term vision. A third trap is illusion of alignment, where senior leaders assume that everyone understands and agrees with the strategy. But in reality, each department interprets it differently. Avoid this by conducting periodic strategy alignment audits. Randomly select small cross-sections of employees and ask them to explain the current strategy in their own words. Where discrepancies appear, leaders can re-engage in clarifying dialogues. As these disciplines become second nature, you'll start to notice a virtuous cycle. Outcome thinking inspires innovation. Systems thinking helps you design scalable models. Assumption testing fine-tunes your initiatives. Transformative thinking drives breakthrough opportunities. Contextual awareness keeps everything grounded, and disciplined execution turns vision into reality. Over time, your organization evolves into a living laboratory, where strategy is not a distant document on a shelf, but a dynamic practice woven into every team's daily rhythm. People don't simply react to change, they anticipate it. Problems become opportunities for learning, and each success, however small, reinforces the collective belief that the organization can shape its future rather than being buffeted by external forces. Looking back on this journey, you might recall the executive who once lamented that her company was too busy to think. By systematically embedding the 6 disciplines, she and her leadership team converted that busyness into meaningful progress. They defined a clear, compelling outcome: to double their social impact while sustaining profitability. They mapped out critical systems, supply chains, stakeholder networks, impact metrics, testing each assumption along the way. They launched a series of catalyst projects that reimagined their business model, from a product-centric focus to a subscription-based platform that offered personalized services. They remained acutely aware of context, market regulations, cultural nuances, operational constraints, and adapted in real time. Finally, they executed with relentless discipline. Weekly check-ins, transparent scorecards, and cross-functional task forces that ensured the strategy advanced step by step. 2 years later, they not only met their targets, but became a case study in how mission-driven organizations can thrive at scale. Now, as you consider your own role, whether you lead a team of 10 or a multinational enterprise, ask yourself, which of these 6 disciplines feels most natural to me? Which one feels most foreign? Are there assumptions in my planning that I haven't bothered to test? Am I too focused on short-term risks at the expense of long-term potential? Reflect honestly, and then choose one small experiment to kickstart your transformation. Perhaps you'll spend the next week drafting a vivid description of your ideal outcome 3 years from now. Or maybe you'll organize a 2-hour mapping workshop with representatives from marketing, finance, operations, and customer service to trace the systems that drive your most critical business metric. Or you'll schedule one-on-one meetings with team members to surface assumptions they hold about emerging market trends. Whatever the experiment, make it visible. Announce it, document it, and measure it. In doing so, you begin to weave these disciplines into your organization's fabric, turning strategic thinking from a lofty aspiration into a daily habit. Ultimately, the power of the 6 disciplines of strategic thinking is not that it hands you a fixed blueprint for success. No 2 organizations, no 2 leaders face identical journeys. Instead, it equips you with a mindset and a set of practices that, when applied consistently, help you navigate complexity with confidence. It teaches you to view challenges as opportunities for learning, to recognize that every assumption is provisional, to embrace transformation as an ongoing process, and to commit to execution with unwavering discipline. In a world where uncertainty is the only constant, these disciplines become your compass, guiding you toward clarity, resilience, and sustained impact. As you step away from this video, take a moment to write down one tangible action you will undertake tomorrow to begin embedding strategic thinking into your work. Maybe it's carving out 30 minutes for outcome definition in your calendar. Maybe it's drafting a simple systems map of your most pressing challenge. Maybe it's convening a cross-functional huddle to identify the top 5 assumptions underlying your current strategy. Whatever it is, start small, document your progress, and share your insights with a colleague or mentor. Because strategic thinking, at its core, is not a solitary pursuit. It thrives on collective intelligence, open dialogue, and the courage to challenge the status quo. When you and your team commit to practicing these 6 disciplines day after day, meeting after meeting, you create an environment where strategy ceases to be an occasional exercise and becomes a living, breathing way of life. That is how organizations transcend obstacles, seize opportunities, and fulfill the boldest of ambitions. That is how you, as a leader, will leave your mark on the future.